The evening air reeked of fuel and terror. A lady found herself tied to a seat, her wrists searing from the coarse cord binding them. Dark figures moved around her, their vicious mockery echoing through the room. "Phone your man to come rescue you," one criminal taunted with contempt. Nobody anticipated the events that would unfold. The thunder of motors and fate approaching. This is Shadows of Dignity. Before our tale begins, please share your location in the comments and follow our channel. Every interaction, donation, and subscription enables us to deliver more touching narratives to your screen. The home of Isabella Bennett sat on the outskirts of a neglected community. A modest white structure with paint flaking from countless seasons of weather exposure. Most twilight hours, stillness embraced it like a warm blanket. Only cricket songs and distant coyote calls broke the peace. Isabella cherished this tranquility. She positioned herself near the glass pane, cradling a cup of herbal tea. Daniel's worn trucking coat lay carefully arranged on the nearby seat. The garment retained his essence, diesel fuel, hide, and a subtle hint of evergreen from his preferred rest stops. Daniel traveled the highways, transporting cargo between states. He had assured her the employment was temporary, yet the open road possessed a talent for consuming time. Isabella occupied her hours instructing art classes at the local center, bringing vibrant hues to combat solitude. However, this particular evening carried a different atmosphere. The atmosphere felt more oppressive than typical. Even the street lamp beyond her home wavered, creating an electric buzz that seemed ominous. She secured the entrance twice, murmured a quiet petition, and attempted to dismiss the anxiety she couldn't identify. The tapping caught her off guard, initially gentle and courteous like a wanderer seeking directions. Isabella's body stiffened, pulse accelerating. Visitors rarely arrived after nightfall. She placed her cup aside, drawing her nightgown closer. The subsequent knock arrived with more force, sharp and demanding. "State your identity," she requested, her tone wavering. Silence was the only response. A third strike against the wood came loudly enough to make her teacup rattle on its plate. Isabella crept toward the side window, glimpsing through a gap in the fabric. 3 males stood beneath the dim porch illumination, leather coats, muddy footwear, darkness concealing their features. A shiver ran through her being. These individuals didn't belong in this place. Her instincts urged silence, hoping they would depart. Before she could withdraw, the doorknob twisted. A sharp crack pierced the air as the entrance exploded inward from a forceful kick. The barrier shattered and Isabella stumbled backward, her peaceful sanctuary transforming into a theater of dread. Rough hands seized her before any cry could escape. Harsh voices filled the space, their laughter cutting like shattered crystal. They dragged her toward the dining area, where Daniel frequently sat sharing tales of roadways and starlit evenings. This night, that seat became her cage. Rope braided her wrists as they secured her firmly, each binding drawn tighter. One intruder leaned near, his tobacco breath assaulting her senses. "Contact your spouse," he mocked. "We'll discover if he possesses courage to rescue you." His companions chuckled, circling her like predators stalking their quarry. Isabella's breathing quickened, her thoughts racing for an escape route. She raised her head high, eyes blazing with resistance. "You'll receive nothing from me," she whispered, though terror made her voice quake. A sharp slap struck her face, stinging and degrading. Agony flared, but internally she grasped something more powerful. The vow Daniel had once spoken, the type of devotion that distance couldn't destroy. She shut her eyes, whispering to herself, "Endure." Suffering clouded her sight, yet her spirit reached toward Daniel. She envisioned his weathered hands holding hers gently during summer evenings, his weary expression when he'd finally return home. "While I draw breath, Isabella, you'll never face anything alone," he had once pledged. She held on to that recollection as the rope cut deeper. The intruders were unaware of Daniel's true nature. He wasn't merely a driver with endless highways behind him. Years earlier, before long hauls and peaceful towns, Daniel had belonged to a group, a brotherhood forged in leather and allegiance, dreaded by outsiders, the Hells Angels. Isabella had pleaded with him to abandon that existence. He complied, selecting her and a calmer life. Yet connections like those never completely fade. He'd maintained contact quietly, as though some instinct told him those bonds might prove crucial again. Tonight, Isabella prayed they would. Outside, distant and faint, a low engine growl teased the night atmosphere like far-off thunder. Her mobile device landed in her lap with cruel force. "Make the call," the leader commanded with a sneer. "Let's see if your powerful husband even answers." Isabella's bound fingers struggled, shaking as she attempted to unlock the display. The men pressed closer, their mockery hot against her ears. She touched Daniel's contact, the speaker echoing through the tense room. After several rings, his voice emerged, tired but caring. "Isabella, is everything all right?" Her lips quivered, desperate to respond, but the thug snatched the phone away. "Your woman is our guest tonight, truck driver," he jeered. "Think you can rescue her from so far away?" A pause followed. Then Daniel's voice, low and steel-hard, "Harm her and you'll regret it." The men burst into laughter, ridiculing his warning. "What will you do? Travel through the telephone?" Isabella stared downward, silent tears flowing down her cheeks. But deep within, something changed. Daniel's words weren't hollow. They represented a gathering storm prepared to unleash. The men roared with amusement, bottles clinking, mocking Daniel's threat as meaningless vapor. Isabella sat quietly, cheek aching, wrists raw from the cord. Yet beneath their taunts she detected it, faint initially, almost mistaken for breeze. A low, constant rumble, growing like approaching thunder. Engines, multiple ones, perhaps dozens. She held her breath, straining to hear. The men's heads turned. "What's that sound?" one muttered. Their leader shrugged, attempting to hide his unease. "Motorcyclists passing by, nothing significant." But Isabella understood. She recognized the sound of power on two wheels, of loyalty wrapped in steel and leather. It wasn't her imagination. It was hope with an engine. The vibrations touched the window glass, bottles trembling softly on the table. Isabella closed her eyes, speaking Daniel's name like a prayer. The thugs attempted to dismiss it with laughter, but their voices cracked with uncertainty. Outside, headlights sliced through darkness, sweeping across her lawn like searchlights hunting shadows. The house shook as the engines roared nearer, then suddenly ceased. Silence descended, a silence more piercing than screams. Boots crushed gravel. Shadows crossed the porch. The leader sneered, gripping his blade tighter. "Stay calm. Just punks seeking fuel." But the knock that followed wasn't a request. It was a warning. A second knock splintered the frame. Then the door burst inward, wood flying like debris, hinges screaming. Isabella gasped, eyes wide as figures stormed inside. Black leather, steel chains, patches bearing flaming skulls. The Hell's Angels flooded her home like a rising tide. At their center stood Daniel, face hard as granite, eyes burning with fury. He locked onto her immediately, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Remove your hands from my wife." For a heartbeat, the world froze. Predators meeting lions. Then violence erupted, chairs collapsed. Fists flew. Glass exploded. The men who had mocked her were nothing now. Boys facing warriors forged by loyalty and rage. Daniel moved like flame. One thug lunged with a bottle swinging wildly. Daniel caught his arm mid-strike, twisting until bones snapped. The man screamed, falling. Another charged with a blade flashing. Daniel knocked it free, sending it skittering beneath the table. "You believed she was alone?" He thundered, his voice deeper than the engines outside. The angels surrounded the room, fists and boots striking like hammers. Every blow carried years of loyalty, a brotherhood that fought as one. The intruder's leader staggered backward, blood trickling from his lip. "We didn't realize she belonged to you," he spat desperately. Daniel's eyes blazed. "She doesn't belong to me. She is my universe." With one strike, he sent the man crashing to the floor. Isabella sobbed, the sound breaking through the storm, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of love fierce enough to battle through barriers. Her husband, absent for weeks, had come roaring home with an army. Tonight, no darkness could reach her. When the final thug fell groaning in the corner, the house grew still. Only Isabella's shaky breathing filled the silence. Daniel turned, chest heaving, fists still trembling with fury. Yet when his eyes met hers, everything softened. He dropped to his knees, weathered hands carefully working the ropes that cut her wrists. The cords fell loose, clattering to the floor. His calloused fingers, still warm from battle, brushed gently over her reddened skin. Isabella collapsed into him, sobbing against his chest. He smelled of road dust, sweat, and leather. Home. I thought I'd lost you," she whispered through broken breaths. Daniel cradled her face, his voice breaking. "You'll never lose me, not while I breathe." Around them, the angels stood silent, sentinels in black, their presence heavy yet protective. For the first time in hours, Isabella felt safe. Not just safe, cherished. She held tighter, knowing the storm outside had been answered with a greater storm of love. The angels dragged the intruders outside, tossing them into the dirt like broken dolls. Their leader, a broad man with a scar across his cheek, growled low, "Flee and don't dare look back." The thugs stumbled into the night, swallowed by darkness. Isabella stood in the doorway, Daniel's arm tight around her shoulders. Her home was wounded, splintered door, shattered glass, overturned chairs, but she was still standing. Daniel turned her gently, tilting her face toward his. "Isabella, I'm sorry. I should have been here." Tears streaked, but she shook her head. "You were. You always are." Outside, the angels mounted their bikes, engines rumbling like thunder held on a leash. Their leader paused, nodding at Daniel. Family protects family. Then the roar rose, filling the night as they disappeared down the road. Isabella pressed her forehead to Daniel's chest, listening until the sound faded. Fear had visited her house, but love had remained. When the roar of engines finally disappeared, silence pressed heavily on the damaged house. Isabella's hands still shook, though Daniel held them tight. The rope burns on her wrists throbbed, angry red reminders of what had just occurred. She touched them, then his cheek, as if to confirm he was real. "I thought I was dreaming," she whispered. Daniel kissed her forehead, but his eyes remained storm-dark. He kept scanning the room's shadows as though danger might crawl back from under the splintered door. Isabella followed his gaze, realizing her safe haven had been destroyed. The house no longer felt like home. It felt invaded, violated. She shivered, leaning into him. "It's finished now," he said, though his tone carried a weight she didn't understand. The angels had departed, but Isabella sensed Daniel wasn't convinced the night's terror had truly ended. Some part of her wondered if those men would return. Fear lingered, crouching in the corners like an unwelcome guest. Daniel guided Isabella to the couch, brushing glass from the cushions before letting her sit. He fetched a damp cloth, kneeling to dab the blood on her cheek where the slap had split the skin. His touch was rough yet impossibly tender. Isabella stared at him, eyes brimming. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Daniel paused. "Tell you what?" "That you still maintained contact with them? The angels?" He looked away, cloth trembling in his hand. "Because I wanted to shield you from that life. I left it behind for you, for us." Isabella placed her hand over his, steadying it. "And tonight that life saved me." Their eyes locked, silence stretching between them. It wasn't just relief in her gaze. It was gratitude and something deeper, love renewed. Outside, the night stretched endlessly, cicadas buzzing faintly. Daniel kissed her bruised knuckles, whispering, "No one will ever harm you again." She wanted to believe him, but shadows still whispered otherwise. Morning light spilled through the broken doorway, cruel in its honesty. Isabella looked around her home and hardly recognized it. Chairs splintered, frames askew. Her favorite vase shattered across the floor. Each crack and shard reminded her of laughter that had turned to screams. Daniel moved quietly, cleaning, hammering planks over the doorway to patch what couldn't yet be fixed. His muscles strained with each swing, frustration pouring into the wood. Isabella painted in silence at the kitchen table, brush trembling in her hand. Each stroke became a release of fear, black shadows across white canvas. "We can leave," Daniel offered suddenly, wiping sweat from his brow. "Find another place." "Start over." Isabella shook her head. "If we run, then they win. This is our home." Her voice cracked, but fire lingered beneath it. Daniel studied her, proud and afraid all at once. She was stronger than she realized. Yet in his gut he felt it. Unfinished business lingered. They tried to sleep, but the night carried echoes. Every creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind through the patched door made Isabella's heart race. Daniel stayed awake, eyes on the window, his body tense as coiled wire. Near dawn, headlights swept briefly across the yard, then vanished. Isabella gasped, clutching his arm. Daniel rose, stepping onto the porch, hand near the knife strapped to his belt. Only empty road stretched before him, quiet and mocking. But he didn't believe in coincidences. The thugs had fled, humiliated, but men like that carried grudges. Daniel knew. Isabella joined him outside, robe wrapped tight, bare feet cold against the porch. "They'll return, won't they?" she whispered. Daniel didn't answer. His silence was heavier than words. Isabella laid her head against his shoulder, closing her eyes against the weight of fear. The night might have passed, but danger had not truly left. Somewhere out there, hatred still lingered, waiting its chance. By the following evening, Daniel made a call. His voice was low, steady, carrying the weight of unspoken urgency. Within hours, the rumble returned, engines filling the air, not as invaders this time, but as guardians. The angels rolled up the drive, leather gleaming under fading sunlight. Isabella stepped outside, awe mixing with unease. Their leader dismounted, gray beard catching the light. "You did right calling us," he said. Daniel clasped his hand firmly. "They'll be back. I can feel it." Isabella watched as the men spread out, eyes scanning tree lines, boots crunching gravel. They weren't just bikers. They were a wall forged from loyalty and steel. One of them tipped his cap at Isabella, offering a rare, gentle smile. "You're family now," he said simply. Tears pricked her eyes at the words. Family protection. The house still bore scars, but tonight it pulsed with strength. Isabella realized that when love and loyalty unite, no darkness dares to claim victory. The night was heavy, thick with the scent of gasoline and dust. Isabella sat by the window, Daniel's arm draped protectively over her shoulders. The angels lingered outside, their bikes glinting like steel guardians under the moon. Then it came, the crunch of tires on gravel. Isabella's chest tightened. Headlights cut across the lawn, too slow to be passing cars. A battered pickup rolled to a stop. Doors slammed. Figures emerged, limping but furious. The same men, bruised yet burning for revenge. The leader's voice carried through the night. "We ain't finished, trucker. No one embarrasses us." Daniel's jaw locked. The angels rose as one, boots pounding the earth. Isabella clutched Daniel's hand, fear threatening to swallow her, but his grip was steady, grounding. "Stay inside," he whispered, his tone both command and promise. The intruders had returned, but so had the storm waiting to meet them. The air quivered with tension, two forces poised for collision under the pale silver light. The yard exploded into chaos. The thugs charged with bats and knives, desperate and reckless. The angels met them head-on, a wall of fury and discipline. Fists cracked against jaws, boots slammed against dirt. Engines roared as some revved their bikes to intimidate, headlights blinding the attackers. Daniel moved like a storm, meeting the leader in the center. Their fight was brutal. Raw fists, heavy grunts, sweat and blood mixing under the stars. Isabella watched from the doorway, heart pounding with every strike. She wanted to scream, to run, to help, but she knew her place was to trust. The world shrank to steel and flesh colliding, the sound of rage against loyalty. A knife flashed in the dark, aimed for Daniel's side. Isabella gasped, but one angel intercepted, dragging the thug down with a furious roar. The brotherhood fought as one, turning the tide. The night shook with violence, but beneath it something stronger pulsed. Love refusing to surrender. The thug's leader staggered, face bloodied. Yet his eyes still burned with hate. "You think you've won?" He spat, clutching a broken bottle. He lunged for Isabella, desperate, vile. Time slowed. Isabella froze, breath caught in her throat. But Daniel was faster. He slammed into the man, wrenching the bottle free, pinning him to the dirt. Rage twisted his features, his fist poised for the final blow. The angels circled, waiting for Daniel's judgment. Isabella's voice cut through the chaos, trembling but fierce. "Don't, he's not worth it." Her words hung in the air, heavier than fists. Daniel looked at her, chest heaving, eyes wild. Slowly his fist lowered. The leader spat again, but Daniel shoved him back, disgust curling his lip. "You ever come near her again, it won't be mercy you meet." The man crawled away, humiliated, broken. Isabella's knees buckled with relief. Tonight wasn't just about surviving. It was about breaking the chains of fear forever. When the dust settled, the angels herded the defeated men into their truck, sending them limping into the darkness with warnings they'd never forget. Engines rumbled low, a choir of steel and thunder keeping watch. Isabella collapsed against Daniel, tears streaking her face, but these were tears of release. The yard was torn, blood smeared into dirt, but her spirit no longer shook. Daniel kissed her hair, whispering, "It's over. You're safe." She pressed her forehead to his chest, listening to the steady drum of his heart. Around them, the angels stood silent, more like family than an army. The gray-bearded leader placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, She's strong, stronger than you know. You two will be all right. Isabella looked at him, gratitude shining through exhaustion. For the first time since the nightmare began, she believed it. Love had triumphed, not through vengeance, but through restraint, through loyalty, through a husband who fought like the world depended on it. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky with bruised colors of gold and crimson. The angels departed one by one, their engines echoing into the distance until only silence remained. Isabella and Daniel stood on the porch, arm in arm, gazing at the wreckage of their home. It was scarred, door splintered, yard torn, but it was theirs. Isabella's voice was soft, steady. We'll rebuild. Daniel kissed her temple. Together. She closed her eyes, breathing deep, letting the new day wash over her. The night had tried to break them, but instead it had bound them tighter. Isabella understood now. Strength wasn't in fists or fury. It was in love that stands unshaken, in loyalty that comes roaring through the night, in a voice that whispers, "You're never alone." She lifted Daniel's hand, their fingers interlaced. The house might carry scars, but their hearts carried victory, and as the morning light spilled across them, fear no longer lived there. Only love, Isabella's story reminds us. True strength isn't in fists or fear. It's in love that refuses to let go, in loyalty that rides through the night. If this story moved you, subscribe and press the bell icon for more stories that prove even in shadows, light always finds a way.